Hi everyone, Grant for the Flame Learning channel. In this video, you'll learn about another retouching tool that comes with Flame 2019. This tool is known as the washer, and this matchbox shader is not as powerful as A2 Beauty, but it uses a faster calculation, allowing you to maintain a faster degree of interaction when doing various cleanup work. The results will differ from A2 Beauty, but I'll leave you to decide which one works best in different scenarios. If you would like to follow along, please click the link in the description to download the media. Alternatively, if you're watching the podcast, then please type the displayed link in your web browser. Now I've loaded the media into a timeline, and we'll use the effects environment to perform the cleanup. You can also do this with the Matchbox node, the Image node, or the Action node in Batch. Click the Effects tab and zoom into the model's chin. Ensure you are on frame 1. So there are 3 little spots that we need to remove, as they stand out quite a bit. Now in the A2 Beauty videos, I showed you the workflow of applying the shader first, and then applying the masks second. This workflow is actually not set in stone. You can apply the masks first, and then the shaders. So hover over Selective 1 in the viewport, and using the contextual menu, add an ellipse G-mask. Starting in the center, draw the mask outward from the spot. If you find the axis is too large, click the Setup menu, choose the Preferences tab, and scale the axis down to your liking. Now returning back to the G-mask, select it in the viewer and use the contextual menu to add a gradient point for softness. Drag the point out to create the feathered edge. So that will be the mask for the first spot. Go ahead and add another 2 G-masks to cover the other spots. Just repeat the same steps as before. Add the G-masks to the selectives, draw them on the spots, and soften the masks. Now these masks are only positioned for frame 1, so to track them to the spots, select the first G-mask in the HUD and switch to the Axis Tracking menu. Change the mode to planar and click the Analyze button. That's the first mask done. Select the second mask in the HUD and go back to frame 1. Change the mode to planar and analyze the track. Finally, select the third mask and also track that with planar tracking. Scrubbing the time bar, all 3 masks are now tracked to the model's face. Now these G-masks are applied to Selective 1, but we don't need to see them for now. So change the icon display to selected using the pull-down menu or the I keyboard shortcut. Select Selective 1 in the HUD. To add the Selective Effects shader, hold space and click on Selective 1 in the Selective Manager. In the file browser, scroll to the bottom of the list and you will find the Washer Selective Effects. Select it and it will be applied to Selective 1. Looking at the result view, you can see that the 3 areas limited by the G-mask have been totally smoothed out. The default behavior of the washer is to smooth out the region and attempt to keep the shading. At this point, there is no grain or any other detail. Switch to the washer menu. The washer amount is the initial control that performs the main smoothing. If you want to see what is actually being smoothed, you can enable the selection display. So right now, it is just 3 flat dots. Turn the display off for the moment. The grain amount can pull back the grain on the image. However, it is super sensitive and must be used very sparingly. The more flexible slider is the threshold. This compares the processed image with the original. As you increase the threshold, this mixes back to the original image. So the detail and grain are returning. When you enable the display to see the selection, you can see that the threshold is targeting the troublesome areas, and by adjusting the threshold softness, you add subtle blending between the original image and the processed result. If you switch the display to residuals, you can see the selection over black, and you can increase the brightness of the display. Just note that the gain slider does not affect the actual processed result. Finally, switching to processed shows the processed areas over black. You can disable the display option. Now there are also shading sliders similar to A2 Beauty, and these can restore highlights and shadows in the constrained regions if needed. If you frame the image to the viewport and scrub the time bar, you can see that the washer has done a pretty decent job cleaning up the spots. Now the washer shader is an additional look development tool that you can use alongside A2 Beauty. The results between the two shaders will be different, and you can decide which one does the job for a particular shot. Just remember that the washer may not be as accurate or as advanced as A2 Beauty, but it is certainly faster if you need the result pretty quick. Don't forget to check out the other features, workflows, and enhancements to Flame 2019. Comments, feedback, and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. Please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel for future videos, and thanks for watching.